Who the hell am I? Well, let's just say I'm your typical American kid. If typical means growing up insecure, stuttering through sentences, dodging a critical mom, and watching dad hide in the shadows. I played football, not because I was great, not because I had confidence, but because that's what mom and dad said you had to do. Never graduated high school, never went to college. Learned to use my words to navigate life, just like Grandpa said. Make friends, make money. I experimented, took things apart, learned everything I could. I've sold wine to grocery stores, driven heavy equipment, caddied on the PGA Tour, was in a band, even went to LA in my early 20s to give acting a shot. Dabbled in aviation, got a pilot's license, worked in sales most of my life, got recruited to Wall Street, and one day I even rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's been a crazy ride. So if you're here for some polished, pre-packaged show that strives for perfection, then this isn't your show. We strive for raw, unapologetically human, off the cuff, spontaneous, and real. If you're the kind of person who likes to solve problems with communication and hard work, then this is the right place for you. Welcome to the Ackerman Daily Show, your daily dose of things you need to know, and probably some things you don't. Well, good evening. A little after 5 o'clock. I don't think anybody's following this broadcast yet, but in case you were, you saw the time go from, I think, 10 o'clock this morning to 12 o'clock, then to 1 or 2, and then I just decided to make it an evening show. We'll do the first sunset. One of the greatest places about existing in this part of the world, other than just it being super cold this time of year, is got the greatest sunsets against the Olympic Mountains looking west here. The colors, unreal. And if you can get a little something nice to look at in the evening like that, it sure does help like heal the soul from all of the chaos that's happening around the world these days. So welcome to the fourth episode here. I'm still figuring this out, running your own show. It's not overly difficult, but it's not super simple. A lot of moving pieces. And when we start taking calls, when we start importing people into the show, I want to have this down pat. People waiting, dropping right on in. Who knows? Maybe I'll find somebody who wants to help direct this thing remotely or here. I have no idea how I'm going to work that yet, but we're just going to take it one day at a time and just keep plugging. So if you get a chance, hit the subscribe and like and comment and do as much interaction as you can. I think we're live in all the different places that are supposed to be live. Still having some trouble with YouTube. YouTube still just, yeah. I just don't think they allow anything that I put out up on YouTube. Even the live. Like, I made the determination that live streaming was the only way to really get around the shadow banning. Because when you have a message that doesn't fall right in line with what, I don't know, I guess the mainstream left media, the mainstream left, I'm not getting it. I'm still trying to understand it myself. And that's what I hope we can all accomplish here. We got to figure out how we're going to get down to communicating as human beings again, as neighbors, as friends, as colleagues, whatever. Because that just went away. It's just out the window. It's like there's this whole new faction of people, and it's not the adults. I'm afraid it's the kids. Like, I have seen some things, you know, my kids are 20 and Wow. 20 and, well, no, actually, they're not 20 yet. 19 and 14, soon to be 15 and 20. And, COVID threw a huge grenade into their lives. My oldest didn't even have an experience like with high school, doesn't even know what high school is like, going to school, in between classes, lockers, swimming class, weight training, all the things that if I look back on my life and my existence, and if any of you Gen Xers are in here, follow for sure. But just think about that. What would we have done if we didn't have, the high school days of parties and friends? And, in our generation, it was a little different because everybody had to be connected by a landline. And, we're the only generation, I think, left that really understands what it's like to wait home for a phone call, sit there and play, Nintendo, play a little Super Mario Brothers while you're waiting for that girl to call, or you're waiting for, a friend to call back to go over and spend the night, get out of the house. I know that was me. My mother and my father, I just tried to stay out of the house. I tried to do whatever I possibly could to just be with friends, find parents that wanted, their kids to have friends over and were inviting. And that's what I did. That's what I did mostly, was just spend time with friends. So, a little different on the evening broadcast. It's going to be a little different because as you'll watch the light in the big window behind me, this is the big dilemma with doing a live broadcast, or even just, a podcast camera framed image. Lighting is the hardest part about all this. And when you have the natural daylight coming in, you have to kind of adjust your surrounding lighting to compensate for the daylight. And we're going to see it. We're going to see the sun go down. I'm hoping we can get, I'm kind of delaying a little bit here, just kind of letting some of these things settle in and see if we get anybody showing up. Oh, I don't know why we're hearing that, but we are. Whoops. Didn't want to do that. Where's the volume button? Can't find the volume. Can't find the volume. Oh, you can't. I see. You can't adjust the volume until. Okay, well, again, we will surf this broadcast to nobody until somebody picks this up and just it starts growing. Because I think unless truly I have been canceled to a level that is just unreal, I'm hoping that the ones who attempted to cancel me will eventually come into this podcast and let me know why. I mean, I think I know why. Told you in previous episodes, I was a known Trump supporter. I wasn't even a Trump supporter, but I kind of how do you say it? I kind of rubbed in a little bit with a few people. There were a few people in our in our friend circles back in 2015 that were pretty hardcore, liberal Democrat type people. And I thought it was kind of funny that Trump was going to win, or could potentially win, the presidency. And I didn't like Hillary Clinton. And so I bet against Hillary, and I bet on Trump. And I was right. And I won some money from a guy in our circles. And he never paid me. He not only never paid me, but he, I guess, decided to just try to ruin my life. I mean, it wasn't just look, a lot of things happen. I'm not blaming or saying that anybody who blames others for things that happen to them, that's never been me. I'm a big believer in owning it, taking responsibility, and really trying to teach my kids responsibility, accountability. If you don't pick up the slack, if you don't put in the effort, then you're going to be left with the aftermath of not putting in any effort. And so I'm not blaming, but what I am saying is there were some significant things that took place between 2019, 20, that really put my life in some precarious situations. I've been pretty resilient most of my life. Been able to make it through just about anything, but this one was rough. This one was rough, and I just feel it was pretty unfair. And I know I'm not alone. I'm not alone because there's a lot of people out there who I'm sure feel very slighted, very, almost like they want a revenge. Now that Trump's in office, it's time to start arresting people and make people pay. And I don't think we need to go there. I don't want to go there. Big reason why I'm starting this and doing this and, putting myself out there like I'm going to put myself out there is because I want to instigate conversation. I want to instigate the conversations that we used to have all the way up until 2016. I never found it difficult ever to talk conversation, to have a conversation around anything political up until 2016. And then it was like things changed. So I'm hoping we can get back to that. I'm hoping that there are some people locally, especially. I mean, I am broadcasting this to the world, and I do want to get followers and thinkers from anywhere. It's not just the U.S. I think all of us have an opinion on this now. I mean, we've taken my generation, Gen X, we got to watch globalism just kind of engulf our lives and charge full steam ahead, from 1999, 2000, when interest rates came down, and then boom, it's just been full steam ahead with this globalism. The wall comes down, Reagan accomplishes that, and then suddenly, there's no more Cold War and nobody's the aggressor anymore, and now we can just all make money and be happy and la da 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 da. Well, here's where we sit today. And I'm hoping that there's a lot of you out there who, one, are willing to put yourself out there and, get yourself a camera set up, get yourself a tripod stand for your phone, or get a webcam, or get a DSLR and plug it in, get yourself, a nice lit scene, just, something you feel like you look good in, so we can start having some face-to-face conversations here without having to be face-to-face. I'd rather be face-to-face. Full on would rather be face-to-face. I think face-to-face conversations, we used to call it in the traveling sales world, knee to knee. Can't have a good meeting unless you're knee to knee. Well, now I think this, if I could have even just had this with my grandmother in the last few years of her life, talking to her face to face, not just over the phone, I think she would have lasted longer. People who were way out in the middle of nowhere with Starlink now, you can have internet in the middle of nowhere and still be connected to people just like this. This is the future. This is where it's going. It's not ever coming back. It's not. So if you're thinking about doing something like this, or podcasting, or I don't care what you call it, just talking to the camera, this show hopefully will be a place you can go to get that going. We'll plug you in here. We'll put you in a scene. We'll have our conversation, and who knows, maybe you become a regular. And who knows where this goes from here? I am streaming to multiple platforms, X, YouTube, Rumble. I think I'm doing Facebook on like my work pages or something like that. Instagram doesn't work. I don't think anybody watches anything on Instagram or TikTok or any of those other platforms that's longer than about 2 minutes. So there's no point in doing long form stuff over there. But let's grow this. And like I said, you link in here. If we end up having a conversation that, who knows what happens, but we have something that goes viral and monetizes and starts paying a regular monetization fee. If you were a part of that show, I'll make you a part of the revenue stream. There is going to be more to that, revenue sharing when it comes to this show, because this show is not going to be just what I can do and put out there in the world. I want this show or this stream or this broadcast to be, eventually I'd like it to be a collaborative effort with, its members, its viewers, and I'll bring more people in and we'll grow it. We'll grow it as it needs to grow, but yet you have to start somewhere. And I think the biggest reason nobody starts something like this is just fear. I mean, I had a fear. I had a fear of doing it. I mean, I traveled the country and gave presentations to hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. And I was the kid who skipped school the day we had to give our book report in front of the class. I mean, I despised speaking. I despised kind of being on camera. Made me nervous. But you eventually get over that. And you just treat it like you're talking to anybody else. So it's about encouraging people. I've always really, really believed in encouraging and pushing people to be as good as they can be. It's because of the mentor that I had and a couple of mentors that I had in my life. And I feel like I need to bring that mentorship and do something with that knowledge and that understanding of how that works, because we're losing good people. My grandparents' generation, the World War II generation, they're essentially gone. The baby boomers, our parents, Gen X's parents, there's still a lot of them left, but somebody please introduce me to some baby boomers who aren't just getting in their own way. I don't know what happened, but a lot of trauma in that generation, a lot of anger, a lot of narcissism, and we'll talk about that stuff. So, what is today? Let's see. It's the 28th. We're almost done with January. 11 months left in the year. It is going so unbelievably fast. I can't even believe it. Few things, conversations that, obviously we're not going to have any conversations today because there's not many people in here yet. Oh, I do have the chat. I was going to see, let's check out. Oops, don't want to go there. Let's save that. Okay, why is that not closing? Okay, let's save that one too. Oh my goodness. I want to see if the chats. Okay, read and relay messages. Where are we getting chats from? So I'm using Restream. And why? I don't see anything. If anybody can see any part of this on any platform, please leave a chat. I'd like to be able to see the chat. I'm not going to leave that there, though. I'll take that chat feed off. And let's see if I can just No. Well, is this in the chat? Learning as we go here, folks. Learning as we go. Okay. I just put a chat. Can't post messages to some channels. Learn more. Okay. Like I said, we're going to get this figured out on the fly here, but there's no reason to stop doing anything while we figure it out. That's the only way I can learn how to do anything is I just start doing it. Figure out how to do it. Everything's up. Oh, look, we got one person on X. You would think that more than one person would want to come and just check it out. Come on, people. Help me get past YouTube's algorithm shadow ban block and comment. Send me recommendations, topic ideas, whatever you want to see. So what went on today? Let's see. Well, the market was up. Market was up good today. And I still don't understand. Well, I guess I understand there was a pretty significant pullback of, let's see if this works. There was a pretty significant, this right here, which was, I think it was the AI stocks. The AI stocks getting sold because some news out of China. Yeah, look at that, 2.5%. That was the SPY. NASDAQ, let's see what that did. Yeah, geez, from high to a low, down almost 4% on news that China is developing and launching a language model, an AI language model that is just as good as ChatGPT, but it's totally free. And not sure how to look at that, but folks, this is how I just want you to look at this for just a second. This is not normal, okay? When you have an announcement like this, which essentially is just in kind of one specific startup sector, not even a mature sector of the market, this news alone affected NVIDIA, where, what was NVIDIA? NVIDIA was up almost 9% today, but I think, the day before, I think NVIDIA dropped, what did it drop? Yeah, it dropped, almost 2.5% also. These kind of things don't happen in normal markets. I am pretty confident, and you can ask around and ask many other investment professionals, private equity managers. Nobody has seen a correction that we need to have before we can kind of continue on to set new highs from here. There's been way too much stimulus. There's been way too much monetary policy that has just been pouring money into the economy. And we're going to see a correction. There's no question in my mind that we are going to see, Bitcoin again pulled back, kind of been hovering around that 100 grand level. So it's like, it's all quiet. It's all normal and stable. And I'm even hearing people just, say optimistic things like, oh, maybe time for interest rates to come down. I could not imagine a worse thing to do for where we're at than to bring interest rates down. We would just crash this thing to the upside. And I think a crash to the upside is probably worse than a crash to the downside when you really think about it. But what an exciting time to be alive, right? I mean, if you are not excited about being alive during this era, yeah, it sucks a little bit. Definitely these last 3 years, I have spent more time by myself, just my dog and I, or my 2 dogs and I, when I had the rescue puppy, that I think a lot of other people are doing the same thing. Why else would there be everybody's buying dogs? Everybody, I mean, there's dogs everywhere. Everybody's getting big dogs. So what that tells me is with the massive growth in people adopting larger breed dogs, that tells me that people want a connection with something, a being, a living, breathing being that they're not finding in either their spouse or the opposite sex or the same sex or the whatever sex. I can't go there. But the world is changing, and it's going to continue to change. And for those of you who just, kind of, this is going to blow over, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, I highly recommend that you don't just keep doing what you're doing and think that everything's going to go back to the way it was, because it's never going to go back to the way it was again. This AI revolution of sorts, I was skeptical at first. I'm thinking, okay, what's AI going to bring? What really can AI do? I mean, we've had the internet for however many years, 27 years. I don't know. I think I started using the internet. Well, I started using the internet in 1986 with an IBM PC computer, one of the original IBM, desktops that was mass marketed, using CompuServe. Text only. Wasn't any fun. It was like playing Zork, which was the text only. It was like playing a book video game where you read it and then you write. So it's not new. We've had it for a while, but until we got through the .com and the .com bubble collapsed, and until everybody got rid of dial-up internet and broadband was just the norm, we couldn't really get to this point. And now we're here. Streaming media, streaming movies. How about, does anybody remember when Netflix went from mailing you a DVD to their streaming service? And then they tried to get rid of, or they tried to split off the DVD service from the streaming, and they totally botched it, and the stock took a tank, and yeah, that was fun times. But there is more opportunity coming at us in the form of streaming platform opportunities, creating media, being a creator, being an independent filmmaker. I mean, I'm sorry, but I think Hollywood's done. I think those guys played their cards, they played their hand, and they kind of showed who they were. And, I went to Hollywood in 93, was there for about a year, lived on the USC campus. My brother was going to USC Film School, and, did the Hollywood thing for a while. We had a friend who was from our hometown who was really coming up pretty quickly. He was in an Australian TV series for kind of his first real job that he had for an extended period of time. And then he went from that, came back, or I think he did the movie Alive, had a scene with Ethan Hawke. And then his career just kind of started to take off. He did A Beautiful Mind, and then he did Sweet Home Alabama. And I hung out with him and some of the guys he knew and got to know some people back then. And it was fun. It was fun hanging out in LA and doing the Laurel Canyon thing where he lived, and meeting some famous people. I got to meet a lot of famous people at the Santa Monica airport because I was, working the private jet terminal at the Santa Monica airport. So I got to interact with all of these people that I've only seen on TV and in the movies. And for me, for a 20-year-old kid, it was amazing because I got to be like, oh, so okay, I know what this person's like on the screen. Let's talk to him. Because, I mean, I've always talked to everybody. That's just who I've been. My grandma and I used to talk back and forth for 3 hours instead of me going to sleep like I should. But I've always just looked for people to talk to. I never shy away from a conversation. And I got to see, oh, look, this person's an asshole. They're just playing nice on the movies or on TV, or this person's super cool, or this person's exactly the same as they are on TV. So it was great experience for me kind of learning just about people, which is really all I've ever done is just be a highly sensitive, kind of child of a toxic, narcissistic, alcoholic mother and an absent father who was really just kind of good at being abused by my mother and overcompensated for that by criticizing his kids. And we all grow up in an environment which is way too critical. There is so much criticism in the world that it's almost like unbearable. And, my family at the time, whenever I'd go to anybody to talk to about what do you do about all this criticism? Most of my family just said, well, you should find Jesus. You need to go to church more. You should do this more. You should read the Bible more. And that was just never my thing. And it wasn't my thing because I grew up I got nothing against it. Like, trust me, I'm not anti-religion by any stretch. I am literally truly paint myself and believe that I am a person who just respects whatever somebody else wants to believe. That's your belief. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. I might debate you. I might, let's have a conversation, but I will never cross a line, of disrespect. And maybe that's something that's been lost on the younger generations. We're going to discuss that here. We're going to talk about that stuff. So get ready for AI. Okay. AI is the real deal. Take it from a guy who has, I've done just about everything once. Well, not everything. Don't, if anybody tries to put your mind in the gutter. No crazy drugs, no, crazy, weird sex, not me. Pretty standard, normal, plain vanilla guy. But I've done a lot of things. I was the guy that when I traveled for work, a lot of the guys I would, connect with on the road would want to go out to the bars or go out and party. And no, I was the guy who was going to find the biggest arcade or going to race NASCARs at the Las Vegas Speedway or going to do the skydiving thing or shoot a machine gun. I just wanted to try everything. I wanted to experience everything. And I've always been that way. I've always wanted to take stuff apart, figure out how it works, figure out how to fix something. And there's almost nothing. Couple times, maybe with some more complex pieces of machinery, but for the most part, I can pretty much fix anything. I am kind of a modern day MacGyver, and I am a pretty humble guy, but I can pretty much fix anything. And with the invention of the internet and YouTube and what everybody is now basically using to, if you need to fix something, you don't know how to do it, you just watch YouTube and you can fix it or do it or cook it or bake it or extract it or whatever. I mean, shit, after I left the banks, so I left Deutsche Bank, I left the finance industry in 2015 going into 16, got into a recreational cannabis business and did not carve this path out for myself, but got into that business, was really just going to help with the marketing. And we had some equipment and some software that we wanted to implement to make the state's systems work better for, easier and cheaper packaging so we could bring the cost down. And we had this whole quite eloquent plan to really make that industry, streamlined, but the industry didn't want it. And we won't get into that tonight. I'm sure we'll have a show where I'll tell you all about the cannabis industry and what we did there. But the industry did not want it. And they didn't want it because the industry already kind of had a pre-planned who was going to be the players, who was going to be the the real big whales in that industry. And it's kind of too bad. A lot of people lost a lot of money on that deal, but ended up getting into extraction, which is, I think the industry refers to it as botanical extraction. And what botanical extraction is basically the distillation of cannabis. It's, oops, sorry. I got kids running around downstairs.
Who the hell am I?
Whoops.
Well, let's
We don't want to turn that on.
Typical American kid.
If typical means. So I learned how to extract, and learning how to extract was really interesting. I mean, it is something. It's think of it like, so you know how you can turn hard or turn like corn or barley or whatever into liquor. You distill a mash. Well, extraction is the distillation of the cannabis plant. That's how they make all the vape pens and all the baked goods and edibles and whatnot. And we used a hydrocarbon extraction process, and it was pretty nutty. Almost blew up the room once. But remember back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, when people were blowing themselves up, when you'd see these stories of, you know, people using butane, like lighter butane, to blow themselves up because they're trying to extract their products. I mean, we've come a long way. We've come a long way with a lot of things. And I'm not necessarily sure. I originally got into the cannabis industry because I wanted my mom to quit drinking. And I literally thought that if she maybe started smoking pot, that she would stop drinking. And if she stopped drinking, it would save her life. And sure, that, you know, I thought that there was a monetary opportunity there that would have made us some money, which there wasn't. But yeah, it didn't work. It didn't work. And a lot of reasons why it didn't work, but we're not going to get into that tonight. What we are going to get into a little bit here, I've probably already talked too long. What was the other? So AI, yeah, get ready for AI. I mean, I'm going to devote an entire episode, might be this week, might be next week. I'm going to devote an entire episode. Oh yeah, that's where I was going with the cannabis industry. If I would have had AI during the launch of the cannabis industry business, it may have been easier to get off the ground. Because what I can do with AI right now, I mean, first of all, I'm working on a couple of screenplays that I want to direct and I want to produce. I want to shoot them here locally, aviation theme, aerial photography, adventure, all that stuff. AI has given me the ability to just like do a read, get notes, and have a rewrite done in like 20 minutes. Or writing something. I mean, it's unreal. It's literally, for me, it's like having a super expert at drafting documents, creating outlines, summarizing stuff that before I might have to watch a video for 20 minutes and create an outline of what was in the video because I'm going to present it somewhere. Now I can drag the video and have a document outlining the bullet points and the touch points in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I can create marketing material ready for print, which would normally take me 6 hours to format and color and design. And now it's 5 minutes. 5 minutes to do stuff that you used to have to hire somebody to do. And it's just getting better. So our economy is changing completely. Like 100% complete economic changes. And I don't know how maybe that's why there's so much crisis and chaos happening right now, because The powers that be know that there's so much chaotic, disruptive change coming, and maybe they're afraid of it, or maybe somebody's trying to grab it all. I don't know. I don't know yet specifically what is going on, but I know this. I've been working on a trading strategy for my investment business since about 2013. Well, from 13 to 17 or 18, it was here and there. But between 2017 and now, I've been full-time working on a trading strategy that I'm going to utilize in a Reg D fund, which is a fund for high net worth investors. And when you manage money like that, when you are looking to add a certain value that nobody else, trading is kind of like painting. There's 10 million different ways you can go about doing it. There literally is. There's no one right or wrong way to do it. You can own mutual funds or ETFs or individual stocks. You can own 100 stocks, or you can own 5 stocks. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Listen to Warren Buffett. He's been my hero ever since I got into the investment business in 99. That guy has been saying exactly what is real and continues to this day. You can do it any number of ways, but I'm going to add value in my specific way, as well as for other clients. But I've been paying attention really, really closely. And from a guy who's had the time to literally look at the macro, world of money moving, whether it be companies that have grown up, the companies that are on their way to growing up, blue chip companies, I have a totally different perspective on the markets, on cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies, I have a little different take on cryptocurrencies. Again, I'm not going to get into that quickly. I got to be careful. Just for full disclosure, I do not have any institutional, high net worth, accredited. I don't have any investment clients right now whatsoever. No retail clients, no nothing. I don't even have my license and everything hung with the state, so I am not officially even able to manage money right now. Full transparency. Don't ever want to get myself into any hot water with any regulatory agency. I traveled and sold investments in pretty much 13 Western states for a lot of years and never got in trouble for anything, because I don't ever want to get in trouble for anything. That's the deal. But what I see coming is pretty freaking amazing. There's some really exciting stuff happening, and we're in an exciting time. So that is why I've made the decision to just continue broadcasting on a daily basis and grow this platform, grow this Ackerman Alliance, Ackerman Media platform. It's going to be, one, it's going to be fun. Two, I hope that we can all kind of start reconnecting again, and use this as a reason to do it. Check in with me. Let's have a discussion. We'll get going. But AI is going to shake things up. The other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit was divisiveness. Who is getting a little... I guess I haven't talked to people in so long, and usually people don't share these kind of messages, but has anybody noticed just the divisiveness in society? And what I mean by divisiveness is, you can just kind of tell, people are irritated. Like, let's say you're walking your dog, and 3 years ago, if you took the leash off your dog like 2 seconds too early, or you let your dog run from the car to the dog park entrance, you'd have 3 ladies just yelling at you like, put your dog on the leash, you got to have your dog on the leash. Like, divisiveness is when people are just on edge, when they're just pointing out every little thing that's just bothering them. You can tell that everybody's just irritated. Where do you think we're at? Do you think we've rounded the corner? Is it just ramping up again because Trump got elected and everybody who has Trump derangement syndrome is now like, just, whoa, they're going to, just ramp up their internal divisiveness to just keep fighting Trump and fighting everything he does? I hope not. And I hope not because, look, I've never been a Trump lover, liker. Like, I've never really had a ton of respect for the guy. I haven't. And it's not really for the reasons that you may think, but I've always had respect for him. But then again, I've always kind of had a basic respect for everybody. Respect my elders. Like, I've always respected people that are just older than me. I think people that are older than me that have been around for as long as I have or longer, they just kind of deserve that little bump of respect because they've been around longer. It's just the natural progression of growing up. Agree? Disagree? I don't know. Leave it in the comments. Do people deserve respect for being older? The old respect your elders. I remember 2013, 14, 15. Now, I live in a blue state and always have. My dad's family they're probably what most of kind of the mainstream media, stereotypes as like right-wing Christian nationalist, like, they're those people. Very religious, very, very right of center. I wouldn't call them extremists, but they own guns. They own land. They build their own houses. They have 37 rental houses on their property. They've done very well for themselves. But they are also incredibly narcissistic and prideful. They like to talk at you, not with you. And I sensed that early on with a lot of them. I got a lot of my early trauma as a kid, hanging out with that side of the family. But some good trauma, some bad trauma. Some of the good trauma, and people will probably think I'm crazy for saying this, but some of the good trauma was, I got to watch animals get slaughtered for food. My grandfather raised cows and chickens and had a farm. Now, my grandfather was an IBM executive, Cornell-educated IBM executive, but he was always kind of just trying to get back to, his farm and his chickens and his cows and his dogs, and rode his motorcycle around and had 5 dogs chase him all over the property. So I had to kill a few animals, because my uncles would put guns in my hand and say, okay, we caught a feral cat last night and we got to go down, Christmas morning, we got to go down and release the cat and shoot it. That was the bad traumatizing. That was the traumatizing, like, huh? How about I just take the cat home? How about I take the cat home and see if it wants some food? Well, no, you couldn't do that. So, everything we experience in our life, everything, whether it be good or bad, you got to look at it as just a lesson, that it's shaping who you are. It's either hardening you, to be more tolerant. It's either educating you to be more efficient or navigate something. But if you just chalk it up as like, oh, that was so traumatizing and I got to forget about that. And if you go to that level, which a lot of people are at today, it's this whole like, I'm not safe. That's never made sense to me, because you are safe. Like, somebody's talking to you. You're safe. You might not like it. It might be uncomfortable, but I think we've lost a lot of education and lessons and abilities, because we've been so ingrained somehow to feel like everybody's got to walk on eggshells, or I think, what do they call it? The helicopter moms, snowflakes. And admittedly, I was a little bit, when I had kids, and I think Generation X, and if there's any Gen Xers in here, I'm hoping, some Gen X parents will join me in these conversations. I think we overdid it, giving our kids all the things that we didn't have, that we, boy, I wish I could have done this, so I'm going to be like this to my kid. I'm going to never let him have to worry or, be scared in school. And I mean, I used to go to my kids' elementary schools and have lunch with them to help them meet friends. Both of my kids had a tough time kind of integrating in. Well, one of them had kind of a tough time. The other one just was a little bit shy. But once he got over that, he was like, the mayor of the neighborhood. But one of my sons, my youngest, was very, he would put kids off. I mean, he would be so grumpy and so nervous about meeting new people that I would go meet him for lunch in like second, third, and fourth grade just to kind of break the ice. He'd feel confident being around me, and I'd introduce myself to the kids, and then I'd take him outside and we'd go play wall ball or kickball or something and just kind of facilitate that ice-breaking meeting. So we've all had our trauma. We've all had our experiences, and some probably significantly worse than others. There's a lot of very, I think very, there's bad people in the world. Okay, there's really, really, really super abusive people in the world, and what I mean by abusive is verbally abusive. Okay. Coming from a narcissistic family where criticism and verbal abuse was just weaponized, if I could go back and do it over again, I would choose to have my parents be encouraging and not critical, and exchange that. Like, if I could have that, I would say, great, you can smack me around a couple times a week, or, slap me with a belt a few times in exchange for not being verbally abusive. Because I think verbal abuse is more damaging to your health, damaging to your abilities, your confidence, your self-esteem. I think that is more important for a person's success in life than anything. And that's all we're doing these days. That's it. It's like verbal abuse central. I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, you cannot watch the news or podcasts or really anything without hearing the same Trump derangement syndrome, the same toxicity, the same like accusations, and you just can't. It's unreal, and it has to stop. We have to get away from all this criticism. Trust me, people, it ends badly. Okay, kids are full of anxiety today. Full of anxiety. I don't think I truly even knew what anxiety, because no matter what I say about my parents, yes, they were very verbally abusive. They were very much not present in my life. I mean, when you hear that Gen X kids got to like roam free, or, that our parents had no idea where we were, that's true. I would sometimes be 5-10 miles from my house. I mean, I had a body of water that I lived on and a little aluminum boat from the age of like 7 years old on. So I would just be gone. And we didn't have mobile phones. We didn't have Find My Friends. We didn't have all this stuff to like find people. So our parents let us roam. And I think that instilled in us a sense of responsibility and confidence that kids just aren't able to get today. So again, I didn't feel what anxiety felt like until I was probably 41 or 42 years old when I first got laid off from one of the financial firms in just this massive round of layoffs. It was really weird. I went to ring the opening bell at the stock exchange, which you might have seen at the opening to this video. You'll see it more, trust me. It's like one of my highlights of my life. But I had just won this award to like go back and ring the opening bell, and you know, the plane trip back to the city was like $4,000. I got to ride in the middle seat. Went and did that, and then came back home, and in like a week I was out working, and I got a call from HR, and like 12 of us just got laid off. I don't know, like not like the bottom 12, like the top 12. And this was 2011, I think, and it like, you know, I was in a big house. I had 2 kids. My wife did not work. We had an au pair. You know, we had a woman from Brazil that came and moved in with us. It's kind of an exchange student / nanny. But she was a godsend. You know, her mother came here from Brazil, and they went through the whole immigration process. Her mother, you know, just gets a visa. But that was the first time I felt anxiety. Was like, oh my God, how are we gonna sustain? How are we gonna do this? Well, now, if anybody's ever been in a relationship or a marriage, and I don't care how loving it is, I don't care how great it is, or you know, we've been sweethearts since high school. When money gets tight, things get ugly. People start kind of stepping out of who they are. They forget about who they love. They forget about what's important. And I'm sure a lot of that took place these last 4, 8, 10 years. So we are very much unhealthy right now as a society. You know, our kids are unhealthy. More people, I think the one good thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the one good thing that I think is coming from this is there is far less people drinking today. Now, they've probably replaced drinking with smoking weed, which is easier to get. You know, the fentanyl crisis is absolutely out of this world. And a lot of things are different, but I think fewer people are drinking. Like my kids, even my oldest, who, you know, he drinks every once in a while, but when his friends get together, I took him and some of his friends out to the coast, maybe going on 2 years ago now. And they wanted to get some alcohol, and they ended up getting it. And there was like 5 of them. They got like, I think they got like a 5th of vodka for 5 kids. One of them got sick. I mean, our generation, if we would have gone out to the coast for the night at their age, I think we would have had like 7 cases of beer, 3 or 4 bottles of liquor. I mean, so I do think that drinking is becoming less prevalent, which I hope it is. Because I watched a woman drink herself to death from about the age of 35 or 40 to when my mom died at 67. And it was tragic. I mean, it was a lot of really precarious things happened around that. And, oh, look at that. So anyway, we're going to take just a quick little break here. We'll be right back.
Who the hell am I? Well, let's just say I'm your typical American kid. If typical means growing up insecure, stuttering through sentences, dodging a critical mom, and watching dad hide in the shadows. I played football, not because I was great, not because I had confidence, but because that's what mom and dad said you had to do. Never graduated high school, never went to college. Learned to use my words to navigate life, just like Grandpa said. Make friends, make money. I experimented, took things apart, learned everything I've sold wine to grocery stores, driven heavy equipment, caddied on the PGA Tour, was in a band, even went to LA in my early 20s to give acting a shot. Dabbled in aviation, got a pilot's license, worked in sales most of my life, got recruited to Wall Street, and one day I even rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's been a crazy ride. So if you're here for some polished, pre-packaged show that strives for perfection, then this isn't your show. We strive for raw, unapologetically human, off the cuff, spontaneous, and real. If you're the kind of person who likes to solve problems with communication and hard work, then this is the right place for you.
Well, you know, where you're doing a show on your own when you got to take a short video break to let the dog in. Lassie, lie down for me. Good boy. Good boy. Tell you what, the fact that there are so many dogs, I know exactly why there is so many dogs, because dogs can save your life. My dog saved my life. My dog, which we got Lester, when I got remarried. I got divorced in 2017 and got remarried in 2018. Not sure why I did now, but yeah, he is a working dog, a border collie, blue heeler mix. My wife and I, she was a mycologist. We managed some truffle orchards and did truffle work. Truffles being not the chocolate truffles, but the truffles that grow on the roots of trees, the underground mushrooms. And we had a dog that we trained to find truffles. That's how they find ripe truffles. And when we got divorced, I obviously kept the dog because I raised the dog and got the dog. But he needs to go outside. You know, a working dog just can't sit in the house for hours and hours on end. So I had to go for walks and keep him running and just keep him moving. And during COVID and during a lot of the chaos that I was put through, a lot of the lawfare and the canceling, because I was canceled or attempted canceling. I'm sure there's different levels of canceling. I don't know where my canceling would necessarily fall on the spectrum of canceling, but dogs, if you pay attention, why is my light shutting off? I just hate that. Well, anyway, we're going to switch over to the darker side here for the last few minutes until I figure out that technicality also. But yeah, it's been a rough go, and let's all just decide that we're going to take little bigger steps towards getting back to communication. It's just time. It's too long. Okay? I really don't want to have another 9/11 or some major catastrophe that's going to like band us together again. Because if you weren't around during 9/11, and I was definitely around during 9/11, I was so much around during 9/11 that our offices for the company that I worked for was located in 7 World Trade Center in New York City. So when 9/11 happened, I was on an airplane that morning. Thankfully, it didn't take off, and kind of had to deal with that whole thing, you know, locate all the staff, you know, was everybody accounted for? So it really hit close to home for me. But one thing that I remember really vividly about that time period is we were so united as a country. We had just been attacked like Pearl Harbor. Like that was our Pearl Harbor. That was my generation's Pearl Harbor. And whether or not, you know, it happened for, I'm sure you've heard the conspiracy theories. There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there, but, you know, we'll just let those come to us as they come. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff to talk about as this show goes on. I mean, I couldn't have picked a better time, a better era to just hopefully try to start something that will bring some common sense and talk through some of these changes that are going to be taking place, or try to talk through them. Perfect timing for this. But we were so united during 9/11. Why can't we get there again? Why does it always have to be, oh my God, something is super scary, let's all rally and join forces and fight as a group, versus fight with each other. In my mind, you hear countries start talking about civil wars when things have just been a little too good for a little too long. And I'm no history major. In fact, I think I flunked history a couple times. I wasn't a student. I had parents who like didn't really give a rat's ass about anything except themselves. My mom was a drinker and my dad was gone. He was a gambler and a cheater. I mean, he always sent home plenty of money. We always had plenty of money. I had a boat. I had things that I could use, and I'd give, he'd give me a gas card to pay for gas, and I'd fill up all my friends' tanks. I'd want to make friends, so what's, better way to make friends is to give them money, right? I don't know. It's all kind of interesting. But let's not have a catastrophe to reunite us. Let's find a different reason to reunite us. Let's make music together. Anybody make music? I love playing music. I haven't done it in years. I'm not an expert at any one thing. Well, I take that back. I've kind of achieved that status when it comes to trading and managing money and managing assets. Like that, I do kind of consider myself in that expert category now. But I've got way over 10,000 hours of focused efforts at that. Everything else, computers, music, golf. Golf's probably the next thing that I'm probably the best at. I am going to, I'm 50 years old today. Not today. Well, I am 50 years old today, but I didn't turn 50 today. I turned 51 in June, and I am going to set a goal for myself that you'll be able to hold me accountable. I'm going to set a goal that I am going to qualify for the U.S. Senior Open when I turn 55 years old. And I will qualify sometime after turning 55 and turning 59. That is my goal. I will make an effort to qualify for the U.S. Senior Open. No way I can put out there qualifying for the U.S. Open. I have played in a couple of those qualifiers, but kids are way too good today. In fact, a lot of one of the specific PGA Tour players that used to play at my golf course, I just heard that he's not even really going to try to play PGA Tour golf anymore because he says the kids today are just too good. Amazing. But I don't know. We'll follow that. I think this is going to be good. Remember how we're going to do this now. Just to kind of highlight, again, what we're going to do. Let's see if this works. Oh, it does. So when you do link into the show, your face will be in that box. I'll give you a link. You'll link in. I'll be able to confirm that you're in, and then we can have a discussion, and hopefully we'll just be able to kind of get that going. Have 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever to discuss things, and this will just turn into kind of a daily grind of sorts, where we can just discuss the daily topics, discuss what's happening, discuss what's going on in your part of the world or your part of the country. Tell stories about your kids. Tell stories about what you think. Anytime you see something that is positive, or hey, we're going in a better direction, share it, comment, like, share the show. I'll focus on whatever you want. I'll talk about whatever you guys want. Can't really do a lot of investing or investment analysis type stuff, even though that's what I will be doing, as my primary business. But because I can't cross the line of soliciting investments, and I'm not doing this podcast to solicit investment. What I'm doing this for is, when I got injured in 2017, I got into a car accident in 2017, a car accident in 2018, and a car accident in 2020. All of them pretty significant, and I got injured really bad. I couldn't play golf for almost 5 years, which just sent me into a dark place. COVID, I mean, if you can imagine, I think there's probably a few people. If you're one of the people who went into a dark, isolated, like, oh my God, what's going on? You're not alone. Trust me. A lot of crazy stuff has gone down. But yeah, we'll talk about, I am going to discuss a little bit of news and politics. Okay? I'm not going to be leaning one side or the other. What I'm hoping to do in discussing news and politics is break down what is the truth? What is real? We're going to try to sift out all the BS. Okay, look, this was AI, this was BS. And we'll talk about that stuff. Maybe we'll get some regular guests. I do know some pretty important people. Who knows? Maybe if I get enough viewers, maybe I'll be able to get some of those people on at some point. But this is just the time. It's the time to do this. It's the time, and every once in a while in the evening, I'm a big believer too. You're going to figure this out about me. I'm a big believer that I think everybody from the age of, I think, 16 years old should know how to fly an airplane. Should know how to take one off, should know how to fly it somewhere, and know how to land it. And I think you should, that will give, if every 16-year-old had to learn how to fly an airplane, now whether it was via a simulator or the real thing, the virtual reality simulations of flying airplanes today, 97.9% just as good as learning how to fly the real thing. And we'll get into that. We'll be doing some fun stuff, maybe in the evenings. I'll do some additional broadcasts where, I'm not talking, and I'll explain that stuff. Because really, after I got into all these car accidents, I knew that I was not going to be able to travel anymore and be able to work, flying around the country, speaking to people and kind of getting back into my old industry, because I just can't move like that anymore. I need to sleep in my own bed. I need to have my own things. Getting old sucks. But I made a commitment to myself and my kids that, one, I was going to be there for them without any relationships, without, a wife or a girlfriend. I've given up on relationships. I've had 2 wives, 2 divorces, 2 pretty toxic divorces from women that, I did everything for. I'm the type of guy who just does everything. Raised by the narcissist, raised by the alcoholic mother, the critical mother. So I go over the top to make sure everybody's taken care of. And my 2 divorces, I was not treated fair. It was awful. It was awful, and I'm not going to chance that again. I'm just not going to do it. I don't think I'm the only person. I think there's plenty of people who have just kind of written off relationships, and that's sad. That is sad. But I've got some receipts. I've got some great stories to share with you guys. We'll have story time. Maybe I'll just record a couple of the stories and we'll play it during the show. I've got some stories about Los Angeles and the movie industry, in the early 90s, some pretty famous people that I met and some interactions that I had. And actually, I'm going to try to hit up a couple of them because I would hit everybody up. Santa Monica Jet Terminal in 93, 94, ran into Tom Cruise, Don Johnson, Roseanne Barr, Charlie Sheen, Steven Tyler, Harrison Ford, Kurt Russell. Played golf with Kurt Russell, actually, kind of. And I hit everybody up. I was looking for networking opportunities, and I told each and every one of those guys, hey, I might look you up someday when I get that great idea that needs making. And, nobody really confirmed, like, yeah, sure, here you go, here's my number. Except Don Johnson, I helped him hide from the paparazzi when him and Melanie Griffith got off their jet, and she was just bawling in tears, and this was right before their divorce was announced. And I helped hide him from the paparazzi. So I said, hey, I'm going to call you and ask you a favor one day. So I'm going to try to get a hold of him. And Tom Hanks was one who was really super cool, talked to me for 5 minutes, and said, yeah, if you ever, you're looking for an agent or something, look me up. He gave me his agency's name at the time, but of course I didn't write it down. But it's a lot easier to reach people these days with this whole social media deal. I just got to get bigger. I got to get bigger. And if I get bigger, if this grows, I promise you this, if this grows, then all my other plans are going to grow too. And if all those plans grow, then people who join this movement of mine, which I'm calling the Ackerman Alliance. Ackerman Alliance looks for people who do not believe in criticism, and they believe in pushing people up and being moral and decent and just living in a kind, old-fashioned American society that accepts everybody, every race, every religion. I don't care. I encourage it. Some of my best friends in the world are from Brazil, different countries, different colors. I had an Indian in my wedding. I had 2 Indians in my wedding. No, my Indian friend, Sagar, kind of a little brother to me. We had our falling out too at one time. Generational divides are different, are big. And understanding each other, understanding because to me, my logic, my thinking that something just sounds super logical and straightforward and common sense, that might sound to somebody else as complete chaos. And I'm interested in that. I'm truly interested in how that's possible, how something that is so easily stacked in my brain as logical common sense can be stacked in somebody else's as a complete farce, toxic, blah. And it's interesting. It's old, but it's interesting. You got to be too careful these days. I was going to pursue a little bit of a stand-up comedy career, but I don't know. I think stand-up comedy is almost too dangerous. Society has become way too sensitive. And that's easy for me to say. It's easy for me to say because I grew up in an environment that was extraordinarily toxic. And I was very used to being verbally abused, just criticized and shamed for things that I was kind of proud of. I was the kind of hey, check it out, I got a B+. My mom used to say things like, why didn't you get a fucking A? What are you, some dummy? You're not my kid. And it was her trying to be funny. She thought she was a comedy. She thought she was a comedian. And she was funny. She was witty, but she was very dark humor. Very dark humor. I think she grew up in a pretty well-off family. She was very beautiful. I think a lot of guys would have killed to take her out or whatever they did back in the 60s and early 70s. I don't know how my dad landed her. I don't. I really, really don't. But he married up, and it cost him. It turned my dad into a horribly, horribly depressed, beaten down like a dog type guy. And we don't want that. Let's have our kids get back to confidence and loving life and wanting to experience things and taking risks. Kids don't take risks anymore. There's no risk taking at all. And if we lose an entire generation of people who like even take a risk to hurt themselves or lose money or what, like if we lose that, we lose everything that makes us as great as we are. We can make this a better place. We really can. But it's going to take some getting uncomfortable. And you know what it takes more than anything? I promise you this. And if you disagree with me, come on and put me in my place. I challenge anybody. Come on. Put me in my place. Tell me I'm wrong. We'll discuss it. You just got to keep it, I don't allow any toxic venom here. There's no just like coming on and saying, you're a piece of this and you're a, garbage human, all that stuff. That is just, that is the way a person who can't form critical thoughts or refuses to form critical thoughts, that is the way they win. They just defame, defile. And no more. I'm serious. This is the real one. No more false accusations of domestic violence, assault, you know what I mean? No more false accusations of that to take a person out. That ruins lives. That ruins families. It ruins kids. It ruins people. And it's happened a lot. It's happened a lot these last 4 years, especially in the last 8 years. I mean, one of the main partners in the cannabis business I was working in had 7 women come forward and claim that he sexually assaulted them in the late 1980s, early 90s. And I'm sorry, if it takes that long to come forward. Now, I'm not saying that those women are, weren't, because I'll be honest, the guy is, he was in the music business, managed bands, was involved in the Grammys, involved in Hollywood. May have happened. But the current affair stuff that we're seeing right now with more of these assault, take this person. I mean, like, what's his name? Sam Altman, AI guy. Seriously? We have literally taken away the victim's power to protect themselves with all the false accusations. Now when I see like a person get accused, or sued or something, I don't even think it is real. I mean, literally, I'm going to be honest with you. The first thought that goes through my head is, okay, what is that person doing that's good that somebody wants to shut him up or her up? Well, you don't see it happen to hers very often, but I've got some stories that I hope we'll talk about. We're going to talk about some serious topics here. If anybody's capable of doing that in a professional, rational, logical manner, subscribe here and join us. Because these things need to be talked about. Accountability, like, I didn't really feel like I matured fully until I could honestly stand up and say, I messed up. I apologize. That was all me. I was selfish. I was whatever. But we have too many people these days who just shift blame, criticize, don't ever apologize, don't ever take accountability, don't ever, own their behavior, and just continuously try to shove it down somebody else's throat. That's got to change. We have to mature as a society. I'm hoping to get on Jordan Peterson's show too, because if I could sit down and give him my story over the course of about an hour, probably take about 2 or 3 with the way I can just ramble, but I want him to break it down. He kind of saved my life too. Hearing that guy, what he has to say, what he went through, seeing other people, when you're not alone when you know that you're not the only person that's dealt with a certain kind of pain or misery, it makes it a little easier to take. You know, the old saying, misery loves company, right? It's true. It is true. And let's work on healing. So, well, I guess this has gone on for about an hour and a half now. So I was worried about having enough to say, keeping it long enough. I know the other topic that I wanted to, discuss was elder financial abuse, and we'll get into that. You know, my mother ended up being a victim of elder financial abuse, and some people who considered themselves liberal justice warriors, protecting women, and, well, they were the ones who literally perpetrated the elder financial abuse and made it look like me, who was trying to save my mother's life, made me look like the bad guy while they were just after all the money. And I know that's happened all over the country too. It's running rampant. You cannot find a lawyer, an estate lawyer, who will litigate an estate. In fact, most estate lawyers just say they don't do litigation anymore. So we're going to dig into that, find out what's going on. You know anybody who's, elderly, has an estate to leave? That's going to be a big part of my practice and my business. We're going to bring that to the forefront. We're going to talk about it. And I don't want to see anybody go through what my mother did or what my grandmother did. Elder financial abuse is real. So that's it.
Who the hell am I? Well, let's just say I'm your typical American kid. If typical means growing up insecure, stuttering through sentences, dodging a critical mom, and watching dad hide in the shadows. I played football, not because I was great, not because I had confidence, but because that's what mom and dad said you had to do. Never graduated high school, never went to college. Learned to use my words to navigate life, just like Grandpa said. Make friends, make money. I experimented, took things apart, learned everything I've sold wine to grocery stores, driven heavy equipment, caddied on the PGA Tour, was in a band, even went to LA in my early 20s to give acting a shot. Dabbled in aviation, got a pilot's license, worked in sales most of my life, got recruited to Wall Street, and one day I even rang the opening bell at the New York Stock Exchange. It's been a crazy ride. So if you're here for some polished, pre-packaged show that strives for perfection, then this isn't your show. We strive for raw, unapologetically human, off the cuff, spontaneous, and real. If you're the kind of person who likes to solve problems with communication and hard work, then this is the right place for you.